All right, Crawford, you my boy and everything, man. But I gotta root for freaking Errol Spence because
You're gonna root for him, but do you think he's gonna actually win?
I really think that he has a chance. You know, this is a 50-50 fight, bro. To tell you the truth, but you know, Errol Spence got a little bit different of a dog in him. You know what I'm saying? He got no quitting in him. He's got a big heart, and the guy goes to the body a lot, man.
The fight between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford has not taken place yet, but the winner is already being named the new face of boxing. And who is the fool to argue with that? Two undefeated boxers from the top 5 pound-for-pound rankings will meet in a head-to-head confrontation and compete for the undisputed welterweight champion status. Have the promoters finally learned to negotiate, and we'll see more fights like this? I want to believe so, but while we're dreaming, I suggest you watch this meeting of champions together with me and find out why should Errol Spence beat Terence Crawford's ass. Friends, today's video will focus on 5 reasons why Errol Spence will destroy Terence Crawford. Please don't forget about the likes, comments with 4 words and subscribe to the channel. Number 5. Right hand stance. Straight from the get-go, do you know when was the last time Crawford fought a southpaw? And not even elite, but at least a pretty decent one? I tell you, 6 damn years ago. In 2017, Bud beat 2 guys in right-handed stance, and after that he got into a comfort zone for many years, from which he would have to step out to fight Spence. Terence himself isn't an easy nut to crack. He could be called an ambidextrous, and he could jump from foot to foot at least 100 times during the allotted time of the meeting. That's one of the main reasons why it's so hard for his opponents to adapt to him. Crawford approaches every fight individually, including the stance. In addition, the undisputed super lightweight champion is famous for his adaptability, the ability to adjust at any moment. If Bud starts getting shot at, he can change his stance and then go back, and so on and on. It'll be very interesting to see how Crawford comes out against the truth. If you look at Terence's ancient fights against lefties, you can see that he stood in a similar stance there. But will he want to do that against Errol? On the one hand, you could call it a smart decision, since Spence himself often beats up right-handed boxers, but on the other hand, the truth is definitely better at this game. If one is naturally left-handed, he will always have an advantage, and that will work even against a Terminator like Crawford. Additionally, we've seen how stance mess with right-handers' minds, but will they be as effective in this fight, where the opponent is left-handed and just as much of a machine as yourself? Will Crawford even want to take the risk and readjust if things don't go according to plan? So many questions, but it only adds more interest as we wait for the fight. The most important thing we know about stances right now is that Spence is a perfect or close to it pressing southpaw, and Terence has never faced one of those before. If the opponent's stance becomes a problem for the challenger, his whole style will start to crumble and Errol's job will become a lot easier. Number 4. Physical superiority. When it comes to the confrontation between 2 boxers of such a level, it is too difficult to identify the winner, and we have to refer to different facts on the edge of reality. But wait, is it fair to say that physical strength is not much an important factor? This is not a CrossFit tournament after all. Now there's an excuse for you to ponder in the comments, and we'll get back to business. Crawford has spent most of his career at the lower weight class, the super lightweight division, and moved up to this weight class in the second half of 2018. Terence was abnormally big for his home division, just some kind of giant, but now the gap between him and his opponents is not so huge, but the weight difference has become more noticeable. We don't have the exact data of course, but in the off-season, Bud weighs about 175 pounds, which perfectly fits into the light heavyweight limit. As for Errol, there have been rumors of him gaining up to 170, but I wouldn't be surprised if between fights Errol's weight reached 180 or even the entire 185 pounds. The champion obviously has no problem fighting in the clinch or pushing his opponent away. No welterweight has yet been strong enough to properly tie up and neutralize Errol, and certainly the underclass alien Crawford won't be doing that. At the same time, Spence himself can calmly measure his strength and in some episodes tightly hold his vis-a-vis to wear him down, just as necessary against such a monster of stamina there, but no one guarantees that it will improve over the course of the fight. Everything will depend on how the champions team builds the game plan. 3. Jab combinations. Here's a fun statistic. Spence throws between 30 and 45 jabs during each round of the fight. We don't have the exact data, but it's definitely one of the best, if not the best result in the welterweight division. If we look at the frequency of punches from a geek's point of view, we find that the Truth throws a jab once every 5 seconds on average. What kind of rockets does this guy have instead of hands? The scariest thing about the whole endless stream is that with each round the number of jabs often only increases. But that would be half the trouble if he was just spamming with one punch. But no, Errol's jab reveals all of his basic combinations. The champion is very fond of the very concept of the straight hand punch, so he inserts it into everything and upgrades it to suit the situation. If the opponent is far away, Spence will fly in with a very long jab over the top or bottom floor, then shorten the distance and then insert a fast left cross. A mid-range fight? Not a problem for Spence, who can, for example, double jab and catch up with a straight hand, or show a fake jab and then dive to land his left hand to the body. And there are plenty of examples of how the Truth can come at different angles for another jab combination. Why should this whole combination with a single connecting element work against Crawford? You'll say Terrence knows how to work against the jab with his block and mobility, which would be true, but then again, Crawford is used to coming up with something against right-handed jabs, and here's a southpaw, and one that does work that the Truth does in every fight he takes. I repeat, every opponent of Terrence's at a high level has tried to go after his head, but we know from a 39-0 record that the plan is knowingly idiotic. You can't knock out a man who is almost impossible to catch on an accurate shot. In fact, is more pleasant than a cool Christmas present, since he is an acclaimed professor of body shots. Many boxers don't want to learn effective body punching technique, but those who take the time to actually do it then reap the rewards their entire careers, and Spence is just one of those. His bodywork is similar to combinations on the head, or tied up in straight hand punches. There are of course uppercuts and powerful hooks to deliver, but they come much less often than juicy straight hand punches or jabs that take your breath away. Errol's opponents and fans alike are amazed at how quickly he can charge overhead and then dive down for a punch without missing anything. It looks like some kind of elusiveness spell, but is actually the result of awesome timing and sense of distance. No one is saying that Spence's attacks will help him knock Crawford out. Their main purpose, or rather goals, are quite different. To take his breath away, to make him worry and put his hands down, to think twice before getting close. I can't be 100% sure, but I think that straight hand punches to the body will be one of the main reasons for the champion's victory. Number 1. Efficiency of action. There is one universal way to distinguish an experienced boxer from a beginner. The first thing that catches your eye is the difference not in skill or any experience, but in the amount of action. Beginners tend to flit around like moths at a lamppost, while experienced men are very reserved, even when they smell trouble. In professional boxing, all the guys are already hardened wolves who have been through many fights and are prepared for all odds, so they behave very calculated and calmly, but Spence stands out even against them. I know that's a phrase that's been used on a lot of people, but with Errol, it just doesn't get any better than this. He doesn't make any unnecessary moves. There's always an ironclad confidence in what he does, and that's his greatest weapon. Spence will never in his life punch just to punch. His credo as a boxer is that every action has to have consequences and further steps. This characteristic sounds a little crazy when we remember how many jabs Spence throws in 3 minutes of the fight, but believe me, every such punch had its own, almost mathematical justification in his head. The pragmatism and confidence can also be seen in the Truth's moves. Unlike the same Crawford, he does not use constant sideways movements. Instead, he prefers to calculate and make only one or two, the most effective steps, or gain to fly in from a long distance with this shocking jab. Another benefit of this machine work is that Spence can rip the pace of his opponent. When a boxer on the opposite side tries to set his tempo with a swing or a shuttle run, Errol just waits until his opponent has a second to react and then punches. The punch is so stunning and precise that it almost always hits the target. So while he's boxing, Spence is in the ring playing chess and always wins. Confidence, calculation, and precision are the main criteria for Spence to spank Terence Crawford and become the new undisputed welterweight champion. At the very beginning, I thank the universe and the promoters for organizing the fight.